So one of the key missing pieces of information when it comes to the Steam Machine is the price point. And this is something that I want to discuss at length in this video. I want to relay what we do know for sure about the potential price point of the Steam Machine and what speculations are surrounding it. Now, many would argue that the price point of the Steam Machine is probably the most important detail because it is the thing that could potentially make or break this machine's ability to sell en masse. They've got to find just the right sweet spot where it is a reasonable business venture, but also a price point that consumers can look at and go, oh yeah, I would buy that without a second thought. And the first thing that I want to highlight is where people's expectations are currently sitting at. IGN recently conducted a survey asking people where they would price the Steam Machine, or at what cost would they purchase the Steam Machine without any questions? And the results are as follows. So it reads right here, how much would you pay for a Steam Machine? And it should come as no surprise that the lower the price, the better. From almost 51,000 voters, 53.8% said that they would buy the Steam Machine at $500. Now, at $800, we still got 30.5% of people who'd be like, I might shell out $800. But anything past that, you can see right here that the ratio of people who would actually purchase the Steam Machine drops significantly. And I do think that if the base model of the Steam Machine, the 512 gigabytes version, is over $800 and, delves into the $1,000 realm, the Steam Machine has no chance to garner mass appeal. That base version, I think, has to sit between $500 and $800. Now, while Valve hasn't revealed a specific price point for the Steam Machine, they've said some things that have hinted at where we can expect that price point to sit. The first thing to note about the Steam Machine is that the goal of this product is to make something that isn't, the most powerful gaming device, but can do gaming very competently while encompassing the needs of the vast majority of PC gamers. A Valve engineer here insisted that the Steam Machine's performance beats 70% of PCs, despite the fact that if you look at the specs and the fact that its graphical prowess is similar to a lower-powered RX 7600 or a notch below the RTX 4060, it still beats out 70% of PCs based on Valve's and Steam's own data, and them being the leading digital platform for gaming PCs, that data is probably accurate. The whole idea of the Steam Machine is to make it affordable, plug and play, and just as seamless and frictionless as possible to get into PC gaming so it almost feels like a console, even if at the end of the day, it's still a PC. When IGN asked Valve about affordability, they said this: if you're trying to make a PC that has similar features and similar performance, I think the Steam Machine is going to be a really competitive price to that and provide really good value to it. The affordability piece you mentioned is one of the reasons why we think a Steam Machine makes a lot of sense right now. So it's just something that we thought about every time we made a hardware decision, a feature decision, is to make sure that we keep it as approachable, as affordable as possible. Now, that's great to hear that they're taking affordability into such extreme consideration, but it's important to highlight that what was stated here is that when it comes to PCs with similar features and similar performance, the Steam Machine will be more affordable. The pricing model of PCs versus consoles is different. PCs are almost like universal devices that are purchased not just for gaming, but for all kinds of reasons. And companies who make PCs, they don't sell exclusive software and whatnot to try to make up for subsidizing their PCs. Whereas with consoles, the reason companies like PlayStation sell their consoles at a loss is to drive down those costs so that as many people purchase the console as possible, so that then they're able to make up for the losses in hardware through software sales, especially those exclusives where Sony and PlayStation get to keep 100% of that revenue. Further emphasizing this is this video from Linus Tech Tips, who talked about the price point of the Steam Machine when he went hands-on with the device and what he learned about it and some of his assumptions surrounding it. So let's check this out. Here's what he had to say.
Price. Valve wasn't able to give any specific numbers due to rapidly evolving market conditions, but they will obviously have it nailed down when the Steam Machine launches in Q1 2026 alongside the new Steam controller. They did give me one hint though. They said that while they expect it to be very competitively priced with a PC, that it will be priced like a PC, rather than like a console with games subsidizing the upfront hardware purchase. They wouldn't say why, but if I had to guess, I'd say it's partially to avoid stepping on the margin opportunities of their potential partners for Steam games and Steam software, but also because they recognize that the Steam machine is a full-fledged PC, capable of being used as a full-fledged PC. There's no guarantee then that, say, a corporate purchase of 10,000 of these things would result in a single game sale. So they really do need to protect the sustainability of their hardware business.
So I guess the question is, what is the goal for Valve with a Steam machine from a business standpoint? Is it to sell hardware where they make money from selling hardware, or is it to spread the Steam ecosystem as far and wide as possible, trying to appeal to mainly console gamers to jump on the Steam ecosystem through the Steam machine? If it's the former, then it makes sense to price the Steam machine more like a PC that is very competitively priced in that space. And the whole idea with the Steam machine PC environment is that there's no hassle involved. You don't have to set anything up. You don't have to deal with Windows. You just plug it in. It's ready to go for gaming. Everything's just kind of set up for you. The form factor is really convenient. It's all about creating the most convenient PC gaming experience. So there might be folks out there for whom that experience, on top of it being competitively priced in the PC landscape, it might be something that could still appeal to a lot of crowds. But if it's the latter and they hope to draw in tons of new players to Steam by making the Steam machine as appealing as possible, then the prices have to be more in line with consoles so that people, when it comes to choosing between the various gaming devices that are out there, the Steam machine is a genuinely lucrative proposition. But it sounds like Valve's strategy with the Steam machine is to make it the most competitive gaming PC that is very capable and accessible, rather than it being priced like a console to directly compete in the console space. Linus Tech Tips followed up on the topic of price point in this video right here, this podcast episode live streamed on November 14th, 2025. And he had some additional insight to offer about conversations surrounding the Steam machine's price. IGN kind of reported on this and both summarized and transcribed some of the information relayed. So here's an exact quote from Linus. So basically, it's a 7600 CPU and a 7600 GPU. This is not a super powerful machine. Valve is upfront saying that they are going to be relying on FSR in order to achieve 4K. And even then, man, like 8 gigs of VRAM, anyone else would be taking a ton of flack for shipping a game console today with 8 gigs of VRAM. I can't tell you what the price will be because I literally don't know, but when I said I'm disappointed that it isn't going to follow a console pricing model where it's subsidized by the fact that the manufacturer is going to be taking 30% of every game sold on it over the lifespan of this thing because I feel that would be a more meaningful product, they kind of asked what I meant by, well, what do you mean by console price? And I said, well, $500. Nobody said anything, but the energy of the room wasn't great. So from Linus's experience, based on him putting out there to Valve that $500 feels like a great price point for the Steam machine and make it more in line with like a console style pricing, the fact that the energy in the room didn't feel great seems to indicate that we can't expect the Steam machine, even the base model of 512 gigabytes, to be $500. And then you've got outlets like IGN who went out of their way to try to build PCs that are similarly spec'd to the Steam machine or to find other products that are similarly spec'd to the Steam machine. And so, for example, right here, they built a PC using PC Part Picker and building something akin to the Steam machine. The price point that they ended up getting was $913 at the time of writing. So we can expect the Steam machine to definitely be less than that, be more competitively priced than something like that. IGN, however, made it a point to highlight that these are specs for more of like a full-fledged desktop PC. Because the Steam machine has a significantly smaller form factor, more akin to a mini PC, its components don't output as much power as the, full-fledged versions of these chips. So IGN looked at like a laptop that is similarly spec'd to the Steam machine, like the MSI Thin B13VF here, and that's currently priced at around $780. And so the Steam machine will likely fall somewhere between those two in terms of raw power. So realistically, if they're not being as competitive, then maybe we can expect the Steam machine to be worth around $800. But if they're really trying to be competitive in this particular space, maybe $700 is kind of a realistic outlook for a device like this. And so while the majority of folks would love the Steam Machine to be $500 at its base price point, that just doesn't seem likely. But at the same time, I don't think the base Steam Machine model will be, $900. I think it'll be somewhere in between. So I think IGN right here is right in their assumption that realistically, it'll likely be around $700 to $800 for the base model. I think if Valve can find a way to make the Steam Machine $600, that would be a good compromise, but whether that can realistically happen is a whole other discussion. But yeah, this bit from Linus Tech tips about how when he said $500, nobody said anything, but the energy in the room wasn't great. That has gone viral. Like the Exerto's report here on that, 11.1 million views and 113,000 likes. The gaming community really want the Steam Machine to succeed. And that's why many folks are hoping that Valve sell the Steam Machine at a loss, because if the Steam Machine sells really well and it spreads worldwide and, it gets a lot of new folks into PC gaming and to the Steam ecosystem specifically, then the loss that they take on hardware sold could be made up for in software sold, because Steam does take 30% of every game sold on that platform. And the idea is if you get more people into Steam and they're spending money on games within Steam, then that 30% cut that they get from new users might be able to make up for the Steam Machine's lower price that might make the console or the PC console hybrid be sold at a loss. But the question is that business strategy viable? How confident is Valve in the Steam Machine's ability to draw in new users rather than it appeal to existing users of this platform? And there's going to be plenty of arguments about that, and I don't know what the clear-cut answer is, because everyone has a different expectation, everyone has a different budget, everyone has a different idea of what the Steam Machine should be priced at. But I think there's a general consensus that over $1,000 and this thing's dead. $500, that'd be like a dream come true, but that almost seems too good to be true. So my opinion is that it will sit in the price range of like $600 to $800 for the base model and close to $1,000 for the 2 terabyte model. And when you think about the price point of like a PS5 Pro that is like $750, maybe the Steam Machine can get away with being priced at $700, but the PS5 Pro does come with, 2 terabytes of SSD storage, so the 512 gigabyte version of the Steam Machine being at $700. And with the PS5 Pro being more powerful than the Steam Machine, some people might still raise an eyebrow if, the Steam Machine were to be priced at $700. And then the Nintendo Switch 2 is, $450. So yeah, I think finding a price point somewhere between PS5 Pro and the Nintendo Switch 2, I think that has the highest potential for the Steam Machine to be like a no-brainer of a purchase. And while we're making comparisons, it is worth noting that the base PS5 digital edition with 825 gigabytes of storage, that is currently at $500. And a lot of experts who have analyzed the specs of the Steam Machine have said that its power is closer to the base PlayStation 5. So to compete in this space and draw players away from these traditional consoles, yeah, I'd say the price point would have to be more in line with this. Otherwise, the appeal of the Steam Machine will be more for enthusiasts rather than for the masses. For me personally, $600 feels like the right sweet spot for the 512 gigabyte version. Realistically, if everything Valve is saying and what Linus Tech Tips is saying and all indications are saying is true of like this is more about being competitive in the PC landscape rather than being competitive in the console landscape, $700, $800 seems like a more likely scenario for something like the Steam Machine, especially when you consider that the Steam Deck is $550 for the 512 gigabyte model, which is how much storage the base Steam Machine is going to have. Though, of course, the Steam Deck is a different form factor. It's more compact. It comes with a screen and all these things. So there are other considerations when it comes to pricing the Steam Deck. But I don't imagine that the Steam Machine will be cheaper than the Steam Deck. I don't imagine that the Steam Machine will launch at $500. And then when you consider the fact that component prices have gone up, there's tariff situation that is kind of shaking the economic landscape, so on and so forth, a $500 price point for the Steam Machine, as ideal as that would be, just seems unlikely to me. But I don't know. Maybe Valve will shock us and surprise us. But yeah, at the end of the day, we know nothing except for what Valve has hinted at. And, predictions and speculations and analysis of what the price point could be, the range of it is like all over the place. Some people are saying, nah, I'm sure they're going to price it at $500. Others are saying it's probably going to be like $800 to $1,000. But only time will tell, and everyone's going to have a different perspective on what the Steam Machine should be priced at. and what's realistic for Steam Machine to be priced at, given its goals and the current landscape of, manufacturing costs and what kind of product Steam Machine is trying to be for consumers. But that's one man's take. I'd love to hear what your thoughts and opinions are on the Steam Machine's price. What do you think the Steam Machine will be priced at? What do you think the Steam Machine should be priced at? What do you feel is a realistic scenario, and what is your dream scenario when it comes to the Steam Machine's price point? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.